There we go. We got a little stream showing up. So we're just going to wait for the stream to start. On my end, it takes around 25 seconds. And we're up to 24 seconds, 26, any second.
No.
Here we go. And how long did that take?
We're just going to wait for
33 seconds.
On my end.
33 seconds from when I kicked in. Hi, Shaniken, Elaine, and Kate. Hi, Kate, and everybody out there today. I see the first two comments showed up as we get this stream on the roll. Had a big throat issue since last night, but whatever, it's okay. We don't mind. We got a crazy show, a good show for everybody today, and what can I say? Last night's stream shows how tritium, and we're going to cover a lot of studies today on other stuff. Seeing as I'm already at this now, I might as well start yanking everything out of the pile and start trying to organize it. And so, tritium is a huge issue. And so last night, I just wanted to make sure anybody's not familiar. That was January 1st special edition. It was 2 hours plus, and it's nothing but jam-packed with the data of tritium. And because Fukushima's releases, all nuclear power plants on top of this are releasing the tritium, they can't filter it out. They can't get it out of the water. And so they made up all kinds of lies, right, in media and in the social networking communities. And so you can't have a conversation with people because they're kind of fixated on the academics. And so what I done was I compiled out of a big pile that I got there 300. I know I had high hopes last night, but I don't even think we got through 100 of them. But studies on tritium, on mice and everything else, and plants and ocean and rivers and communities and power plants. But we're going to cover a bunch of headlines, not headlines, academic studies today, because I got all that stuff there, and it's shocking I never use it, I guess, but let's try to get through some of it. And we sent out extra hugs for Elaine, who dots got under her skin, and so she went to bat for us. And that's highly appreciated, like everybody else. I know there's somebody out there that donated $500 to it, and they got problems, I guess, and they want the money back. And so I just seen that email there from the credit card companies, and so if I'll go look at it, and if you're watching this, whoever that was, and then I'll see what I can do for you. You got to realize the money got purposes. We don't raise a lot, all things considered. We don't, not for what we're doing right now. We covered 5 expeditions, for anybody that's not familiar, on major expeditions up and down the coastline of British Columbia for 260 days, 15,000 miles, over 200,000 pictures. And even got arrested when we finished the last expedition in order to try to silence that data. And I've been vilified throughout the social media and mainstream media as some kind of violent thug. And every time I say that we should hang certain nuclear scientists for lying to everybody, I always say, I hope I do anyway, by changing the laws in the future when we convict them and find them guilty. Because if you don't say that, you can't have a conversation on the internet without saying those words, because otherwise they'll just use that to come and attack you and say, oh, death threats. And then the media comes out and vilifies you, and that's exactly what happened. So normally when that happens, they suicide you shortly after. And just for the record, I'm not suicidal. I'm the farthest thing from suicidal on the planet. They're suicidal if they think they're going to get away with it. They're suicidal if they think I'm going to give this up and go away and let them off the hook for what they got done. Because we done 260 days, 15,000 miles of the coastline. And so we'll get to those studies coming up here in a second also. I'll just bring up a quick reminder for anybody that's not familiar with that. I hope I do anyway. And then we'll jump into the studies, and we got some crazy good stuff for everybody. Today, we'll shift myself around a little tiny bit, and we got to get rid of we got to get rid of the fade. I got stuck on that. So that shows up brighter. There you go. You get some natural colors. Some urchins waste away, others come out of hiding. And what this was about was 4 places along the coastline. This is the Smithsonian, but also they just piggybacked off National Geographic's coverage. And so 4 spots in the 5th spot, and they declared a mass mortality throughout the coastline in North America for sea urchins. Right? And so what we done was we crowdfunded and raised and put together this operation for 260 days. That's when I was up in Metakatla, up north. It's a little tiny native community in the middle of nowhere. And the arrows you see there are the representation of the coastline of British Columbia. What we covered, the actual, all those, inside of all those islands, we went through all of that too. It's just not represented by an arrow. But an arrow is meant to represent 5 days or a week or a month. I guess not that long, but five or 6 days minimum anyway in each spot. Area, that like coastal area. And observing everything there at the same time as going ashore and doing species counts. And so when we went ashore, this is what we found basically everywhere we went. We found about 100 species throughout the coastline. But when you go ashore, now these 2 pictures and the next 2 pictures are the same spot. And so when you go ashore, it should look like that, not like that. See? And so when you go ashore, it shouldn't look like this. It should look like that. Right? With all, and so the leatherback starfish you see there, the leatherback starfish, they proliferate around in that same spot. This picture is from the same spot where it's now naked. Right? That's the same spot there. But the leatherbacks, there should be 75 per square meter of these. So that's what it looks like normally. And that's why it was coveted. And that's why people love that spot. And these pictures are all from that one spot, before and after. Some of them are not that great, but nevertheless, they show you the biodiversity, the amazing amount of life that was there, and then what is left is insignificant and cannot last. And so these pictures are all from the same spot, befores and afters. But the pictures of before, like you're looking at right now, the whole coastline looked like that. It's not just this one spot. But because the nuclear PR firm will try to find a fine line, say, oh, Dana, that's not the same spot, Dana, so it doesn't really, you're not really telling the true story, Dana. No. I was a commercial diver for 14 years. I ran over a dozen commercial dive vessels on boat oceans in Canada. I also done every industry in boat oceans in Canada. I also had 30,000 hooks when that fishery collapsed and 120 gill nets. And that I had worked every industry at boat oceans. But I also studied nuclear extensively for over, hardcore 8 years, but I've always been interested in it, but hardcore. Not like the last couple of years, I'm sure, but then again, 260 days of that was on the ocean, right? 5 months straight without coming home. Because we had to find out. We had to know, and I know I switched gears on everybody that time. We'll go back to the studies here in a second. But the reason Fukushima is so bad is, take 2006 when Vidal is just the one I happen to use all the time, but you can go out and look up pre-Fukushima on Chernobyl. Even now, they'll tell you the same thing. It was equivalent to 400 Hiroshima bombs. You can split the hairs all you want. But it was equal to 400 Hiroshima bombs. Okay, so we covered 15,000 miles, right, in this little tiny itty-bitty operation. That everybody was asserted that I couldn't do the whole coastline of Canada. How are you going to do the whole coastline of Canada, Dana? I do it very slow, very methodical. And I go ashore 6-7 islands a day. And I took the pictures, and they're up at the nuclearproctologist.org, right? And then let's get over to the goodies we got for everybody today. I'm just making a point that we're not some random people that read a bunch of posts and comments and said, oh, there's something going on here. I'm going to go out and make a big racket about it. No, we covered the whole coastline of Canada. 5 expeditions. Nobody's done that. Woods Hole and University of Victoria didn't touch a tidal pool ever. 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 Not a single time. Ever. And so if you were going to look for damage from radioactive fallout, where would you go? Well, that's what today is all about, in one sense, is we're going to show you all these studies about nuclear. A lot of it's about tritium, because it's all from the same folder, but it wasn't part of the program. The stuff I got wasn't programmed for last night. This is different altogether, what I'm going to show everybody today. And so sources and pathways of artificial radionuclides in the Pacific Ocean. I got to get rid of that stream over there. Hang on a second. Hang on a second, because I got everything screwed up here. Right? Yeah, we're still got that extra stream going. There you go. I knew I missed something today. I never said hi to everybody. Hi, Amthirst. Hi, David. I'm just going to get rid of the Adobe so I haven't got 2 streams playing. One going out and one coming in. We don't need that, but I can still monitor the comments and say hi to everybody. Terry Ann, Gil. Shanikan again. Which is Elaine. David again. Joe. Terry Ann. I'm just trying to catch up. Amthers. Hey, Zoe. Hi, everybody. Radical Home. Goddess is, and I haven't got my glasses on. Got a real cool name there. And we'll go back over to the studies here right away. I just want to say hi to everybody. Adam, Albert, Kate, Candace, anybody I forgot, my apologies. Ping. And it's just something I like doing, and that some people don't like that. Jester, I got no problem with it. Steve, see? Sweet, man, I got to say hi to a whole lot of people today. And morning, sure. And I think that's it. Okay, let's get on with the stream. We'll come back up top and see if anybody else showed up that I didn't say hi to, and then we'll get going. And so it's a regular stream today. Bob, ice cream for you. A jolly. A jolly? Darn if I can say. Does that highlight anything? Yeah. Shabazz. Got a cool name there. I'll trade you. Here we go. When you're ready, Dana, on a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a Sources and pathways, artificial radionuclides. Went out. What was the year on that? It was downloaded 29 times. And I don't see a year on it. Let's get rid of Dana. Yoink. Okay. Here we go. Can I fix my picture a bit better? I think all these pictures are going to be kind of uniform. Let me see if I can get that switch, Dana. There you go, buddy. Yoink. And, okay. All right. Let's put something else down there, though. Let's put that down there so people know what it means. I'll flip back and forth. Okay, Dana, anytime you're ready. All right, I think we're all ready. So, artificial radionuclides, when you see that, that's man-made nuclides. That's an atom that has an isotope, has a neutron bombardment on it from a chain reaction and accepts an electron as an electron. So now it has a new atomic weight, and that's what it's all about. The stuff from a chain reaction is an easy way to look at it. Has accepted neutrons, and now it has a new weight. Do you get that? Because I know some people out there can't wrap their mind around it, and I'm always trying to really find a better way to put it out there. And so the stuff we're worried about, the stuff that's considered a dirty bomb, is everything at a nuclear power plant that has a standard set to it. So when the stuff at a nuclear power plant has a standard, like, oh, you're allowed to put this many becquerels into the ocean or blah, 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 which is all lies. But they got no idea what to do with it. Like 3 Mile Island, they evaporated all the water, they claim anyway, that they had there. They evaporated it into the environment because it dilutes. No, it doesn't dilute. It never dilutes. You can put this stuff in with battery acid, and 1,000 years later, it's still there. You can't get rid of it. You can't destroy it. We don't have anything on the planet that can neutralize it. We have fables, just like a perpetual motion machine, but a lot of this stuff can help. I'm not saying everything out there is a fable. I'm just saying that what you're going to see today will tell you the story anyway. Present concentrations of radionuclides in all compartments in the marine ecosystems are low. Moreover, since the beginning of the 80s, decreasing concentrations are artificial. So what they're talking about there is bomb testing fallout, basically. And considering both physical and ecological pathways, because depending on when these studies were created, like a lot of these studies were done before Chernobyl, which is probably this one of these too, right? And so they don't take Chernobyl into account when we're doing these studies. Like when we're talking about this, or when you're thinking about this, when you're looking at that, you got to remember to separate Chernobyl and Fukushima from a study, because the studies were pre-Fukushima. And all the studies, except for one I think I got here, in this particular pile, is pre-Fukushima studies. And the one 2014, hopefully I get so. There's some funny stuff. The content, ratio, and behavior of isotopes. Don't click shit, Dana. Content and ratio, the sixth sentence from the bottom. Behavior of isotopes as well as their rates of accumulation in shelf and deep ocean sediments depend on the source of radioactive contamination. At present, only the long-living isotopes. Well, isotope of strontium and cesium are not what I consider long, but plutonium and americium are. But strontium and cesium are long-lived. They'll outlive me or you or anybody else currently living on the planet or about to be born. Except for, normally that wouldn't apply to whales, but they'll all be gone by the end of the year. And if you see me kind of smiling in sarcasm that time, trust me, that's the gallows humor and gallows laugh, because I don't want to say it, but I had to come out and explain it that time because I feel, like I'm guilty just even talking about how friggin' dead the ocean is. We done 260 days. You see the boat down there? 260 days on the coastline of British Columbia. And the 4 million other species didn't receive the coastline. Right? So we done 15,000 miles of coastline. We done more than that. I only say that as a figure to people to wrap their minds around. The coast is naked, and that it should look like that or like that. But I mean, I got and I'll start doing videos about the Expedition for Life really, really soon, repeatedly, in order to try to get that data out there now and everything else. At the same time, coming up in a month or 2 months, I got to finish that documentary. And I'm ready to go. It looks like we're ready to go. I got all the equipment. Not everything, but I got almost all the equipment. And I got no regrets on that. That's why we exist right now, and that's why we're going to be able to do everything we're going to be doing, because they took down all of our equipment, right? And they arrested me, and then they tried to take down my site at the same time with the false copyrights when I got out of jail. And then they smeared me, accused me of death threats when I'm charged with an obscure law through a private police department of criminal harassment and nuclear pukes. It's not even a real police department. They're not a national, they're just a little 150 police in a city full of government buildings and government offices and government, federal government, industrial, corporate, spies, CSIS, and everybody else. That's what Victoria, British Columbia, Canada is. And so when UVic came after me, that's UVic Law School. That's the law school. Hey, I'm streaming. Hey, buddy. I'm streaming. 10:30, 20-minute stream. How you doing? You made it back. You were broke down. Zoe, hey. Yeah, Roger was broke down in Vancouver. Just got back. And so the studies, and what are you going to do, buddy? You're going to hang out for a little bit? Yeah. I'll do another 15, 20 minutes. But I got a lot of studies. I can always come here tonight and do another one. It's good to see you back. So measurements of natural and artificial radionuclides in food samples and water for human consumption in Austria for calculation. Now, we covered that one last night. And I got the wrong one. Maybe not. Let's see what else I got here. Long-term health effects of radionuclides in food and water supplies. Yeah, I think I covered this last night. Assessment of gamma-emitting radionuclides in aquatic ecosystems. An evaluation of radiological doses to aquatic plants. So we covered a lot of that last night too. There's so many of these studies, I get lost. Inorganic radionuclides for nuclear medicine therapy. You got any idea how twisted that is? It's okay, Raj. The microphone actually doesn't pick up much in that corner. It's kind of isolating. Uncertainties, environmental impacts, and risk assessments from radionuclides released from different nuclear sources influencing the Arctic. And so we know we got no snow in the mountains here in British. Well, we got snow, but we haven't got the ice pack. And the ice pack was 1,000 to 10,000 years of ice under huge pressure. And this was hard ice. You can hit that with a maul, with a 9-pound maul, and you have a hard time breaking a chunk off it if you're up there in the glacier itself. That's how hard it is. It's just as hard as rock. And I know that from the east coast of Canada, from going out and hitting it in boats. And there's 33,000 wrecks on that coastline. A lot of them were for hitting these types of icebergs. That's what took down the Titanic. The Titanic. Dana had inferior metal, Dana. No, it hit 200,000-year-old ice pack. There's nothing that can stand up to it. It didn't matter if they used perfect metal. It still couldn't stand up to that stuff. Not even at 10 knots. It doesn't sound like a lot, but you got to wait. You got to wait behind that, right? There's a lot of weight to these boats. So a significant number of past, present, or potential nuclear sources which have contributed and still contributing and have the potential to contribute to radioactive contamination of the environments has been studied and studied and studied and studied and studied verbatim since the nuclear industry. Now, they come out and told you in the media and in the blogs that is like a banana potato chips walking in sunshine, getting on airplanes. So another study on the salt marshes in UK from Sellafield was an interface for exposure to radionuclides from the marine discharge. Now, Sellafield had a meltdown, right? They kidnapped people off the streets, and I can play that video for everybody because I got it packed in there. Because, hey, that's how I roll like that. I'm going to play that video. This is a short 1-minute video. Hopefully that's the right one. Yeah, that's the right one. I'm just going to play that. Hang on a second. Click.
To push the burning fuel through into the back of the reactor.
But the heat had melted the cartridges, so they'd become stuck inside the core. They were forced to use scaffolding poles they'd found nearby to try and push the cartridges out. Radiation was so intense they could only work a few hours. They were running out of firefighters.
The police from the factory had turned up looking for volunteers, and they'd brought a bus, and they decided the best way to get the volunteers was to go to the cinema and volunteer the back 2 rows at the show to go into the factory to, as it turned out, to help push the fuel rods out of the
so they kidnapped people.
The reactor.
To push the burning fuel.
How's autoplay get? That shouldn't autoplay, but it autoplayed that time. That's okay, folks. And so they kidnapped people into the theater, into the 2 back rows. The police done it. This was the nuclear police. This wasn't the local police department. This was the nuclear police. And so apparently their authority now, if there's an accident, is they can go kidnap your children from the theater. They never went to a porno theater and kidnapped the perverts out of the theater and brought them in there. Not that that's illegal. But, you know what I'm saying? It could have been your child. It could have been your wife who finally needed a break and decided to go out and watch a movie with one of her friends or sisters or mom or somebody and got kidnapped and brought into Sellafield and then bombarded with gamma and alpha and beta and x-rays and gamma shine. Because there was 5,000 nuclear plant workers there. How come they didn't go in and push the rods? Because they were like, no, dude, I work here. I'm not going in there. I'll be dead in 2 years if I live that long. Chernobyl, they went up on the roof for 15 seconds at a time. They shared the dose over thousands of people for days and weeks to clear off the graphite. Now, that was graphite. What they were doing at Sellafield, they were making MOX fuel, mixed oxide fuel. That's why they contracted it all out to the Japan reactors. That's why BP stepped in and said, no, don't do nothing, because they were worried it would blow back on the Queen and in her face and the industry, because the Queen has $17 trillion in global uranium stocks. She owns the mineral rights to most of the planet's stocks some way or another. Not all of it, by no shape or form. We know that uranium stocks are constantly now being shoved up on a pedestal. And that the Globe and Mail, of course, who accused me of death threats, is one of the worst ones out there for stocks for uranium. And that it all ties together into the whole industry terrified of what people are going to work out. So I'm not going to dwell on this. So 15 kilometers from Sellafield, field measurements of the activity in the sediment within the estuary have shown dispersal variations in concentrations. So different concentrations all throughout that entire area. So when a nuclear power plant is in your community, that's why within 15 miles of it, breast cancers, there's up to 6 times more. Where leukemia, there's up to 20% more for children within 15 square miles. The same study is here for how the disposition is found, how it's uptaked. And this is a lot of stuff we covered last night, was how it was uptake. The uptake and distribution of alpha-emitting radionuclides in the marine organisms. And they're talking about plutonium and americium, but there's 2,000 isotopes that we know about that they emit to, that you can go look up. There's around 5,500 rather that you can look up. There's around 2,000 of them are long living. There's another 10,000 that are classified. And so the studies I'm showing you, environment behavior of radionuclides released into the nuclear industry, is just so you can confirm the things I told you. And so that was based off a 73 study. See, 75, when that came out, and it's $39, you know. Soviet studies of anthropogenic radionuclides in the seas around the USSR have mostly been concerned with the Black Sea and the Baltic Sea. And there have been reports of a few studies of artificial radioactivity in the sea, of the Barents Sea. Participants, now the artificial is always man-made. Man-made is extra electrons accepted as a new atomic weight, and that it's a dirty bomb in every context of the word. And just because it's released into the environment in increments over time, so 3 Mile Island lasted 5 days, it took them 14 years to get in there, and at the end of that, they evaporated 2 million gallons over 2 years. Evaporated 2 million gallons. They said only had tritium in it. But water doesn't just have tritium. They can't filter out tritium in particular. They can't filter out all of the strontium or all the uranium, plutonium, americium, neptuniums, or the 2,000 elements or the 10,000 classified ones. But they only tell you about a handful, and they tell you about that as I'm showing you. Over decades, all these studies are all over the place, pre-Fukushima. But what do they show you? They all they talk about is cesium and strontium. Cesium, strontium, cesium, and strontium. Because that's all they're allowed to study. That's the game. Right, so Dr. Raymond Gilmedy from Loveless Respiratory Research Institute in New Mexico, his study, 94 of his studies, this one in particular, the toxicity of inhaled plutonium dioxide in beagle dogs and beagle puppies, there was 144. And so the third sentence, tumors of lungs, skeleton, liver occurred beginning about 3 years after exposure. And bone tumors found in 93 dogs were the most common cause of death. But also lung tumors were found in 46 dogs. Liver tumors were found in 20 dogs, but were the cause of death in only 2 of the dogs. 93 of them, of course, out of the 144, were the bone tumors were the most common cause. But tumors in these organs often occur in the same animals and were completing causes of death, you know. Right? That's how you should look at it. There's multiple tumors, and that's what it's showing you in that study, isn't it? So look at the last 2 sentences. The finding in the dogs suggests a similar dose-related biological effects could be expected in humans accidentally exposed to 238 plutonium. But you can take the same model now and use it for all the other radioactive elements, right? That'll travel, because plutonium is a bone seeker, tritium is a bone seeker. And so now we know, and like, I'm going to jump back over to the study, but like I covered last night, Health Canada took down the model of the natural radio or artificial nuclides in the last month or so. So they purged that from their site. I'm sure it's up there. Now, people have found it in a different format. I found it in a different format. But what I'm talking about, it wasn't there in the format. And I showed you the video I had made where I scrolled through the page from April. And you can see that video at my site on top of that. But did you know that, Roger? Health Canada pulled that study, that model? You know the charts I'm talking about? Yeah. They pulled it from their main page, and I got it in my bookmark, and you don't go to that page anymore either. So I found a page, but it doesn't have that model there.
Did they have an excuse for putting
No, not at all. And my smokes don't got 7,000 chemicals. Shut your pie holes. CNT. 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 You got to get a big cheer for CNT. Without 7,000 chemicals, there's a novelty. I get more chemicals than sucking in the flame. And who knows what else they got put in the Bic. Probably got 7,000 chemicals in that, the dirty, rotten scoundrels. Let's get back over to our studies. DDR tote. So we are very excited to see 2016. Now, the story just came out at E&E News. Mass die-off of baby whales along the coastline of North America, including British Columbia. Now, I had a skipper call me up a couple of days ago, and we have a dead whale also on this side, on the east side of Vancouver Island by Campbell River, a baby killer orca, and somebody cut the head off it. Hey, you never heard of that one, did you? No, he phoned me up and told me his neighbor went down and took pictures. I think he sent me pictures. I got to get through all the emails. Let's go finish off the studies anyway. We're almost through them. In one sense, Chernobyl radiation is tracers. So they took a natural event or a catastrophe. Chernobyl stopped after 10 days. Like Vidal's article I showed you earlier was equal to, after 10 days though, it was equal to 400 Hiroshima bombs worth of radiation contaminated. You still can't eat the meat, buy the milk, or sell the land in certain parts of UK, Ireland, and Scotland. And then in Sweden, 2 years ago, they opened the freshwater fishing industry after being closed for 26 years because of Chernobyl's releases. But anyway, how this stuff works and where it goes and how it finds its way has been studied pre-Fukushima many times. And the tracer signals of Chernobyl radionuclides in the northern Adriatic Sea was easily detected, both due to the high and direct fallout disposition over this area. Right? So they found a dead worker down at WIP, Waste Repository. Remember when WIP happened, they announced on February the 14th, was it last year, I believe, that WIP, there was a truck fire, and they abandoned the place for 10 days because of a truck fire, and then they announced, rather, on the 14th, there was a radiation also release, but no one was down on the ground since the truck fire. And I played those clips. I played the clips. KRQE, Channel 13, same one that called me a conspiracy theorist back then when I said they're not going to get back down in the mine. And did they get back down in the mine? No. And that the fallout wasn't from a truck because you had 50 football field sized caverns down there. All you do is get on the other side of the truck and put out the fire. Right? Yeah, that's how it works, see? And so artificial radionuclides in the subsurface sediment of the Irish Sea is another study I can go into detail, we're not. Selected species for marine assessment of radionuclides around Amchetka, planning for diverse goals and interests. I wonder whose interest, eh? Get rid of the people and you go in and get all the mineral rights. Consideration for space travel in the future. Everything's about getting all the mineral rights for space travel in the future. That's what all the wars are about. It's not about now, it's not about tomorrow, it's not about next year. It's about the future generations. These people think in terms of 100 years or 200 years, never in months or days or weeks. That's left to the PR firms to muddle the water. Considerable attention was devoted to selecting species as part of monitoring programs for their effects, because they already knew the effects upon the mollusks and the snails and the periwinkles and the shellfish and the faunas and the floras. And we showed you a lot of those studies last night about that. Stakeholder, regulators. So this was about giving them ammunition, finding out where the damage was occur when there was a release, what the damage would be, rolling out the PR firms to come up with a story. Oh, there's a big warm blob in the ocean. Because they knew all the phytoplankton had disappeared, which is the basis of the food chain, the carbon sequestering chain, the oxygen chain. 50% of the oxygen on the planet is from the Pacific Ocean, the biggest ocean on the planet. Long-lived man-made radionuclides in the soil plant systems. Artificial radionuclides in aquatic plants of the Yangtze rivers in areas affected by the influences of the Russian plutonium complexes. Right, they evacuated 7,500 communities in the 50s from the Tetra River. 7,500 communities permanently for a lot less radiation what we're seeing now. I'm seeing 200 on the Geiger counter here, at least regularly. And I've seen it up to 260 many times. But your Geiger counter, when it accepts that electron and it excites the gases, it can't read the other atomic decays. So it's missing atomic decays until that. Now these things are very fast, but you're missing the atomic decays. So you have to double, triple, even up to 6 times the number. So if I see 200, that's 1,200. Top number. But that's only of a certain particle. The Geiger counter is only calibrated for certain isotopes. Right? And it's not very good at those particular isotopes. When you think about it, it's looking at the beta or alpha decays. The soil is the most important link in the migration pathways of many long-lived radionuclides, particularly in the tropics chains, because of the warm climate allows the uptake more effectively. That's why British Columbia is so interesting, is because it's a climate-sensitive area. The waters are kept warm by the direct currents from Japan. And an essential feature of the soil is the ability to accumulate and to retain for long times. But it can only accumulate so much. But nevertheless, think about a gram produces more atoms than every grain of sand on every beach on the planet. And that 2 million atoms on the head of a needle, you can't see it, but distributed out, that's 2 million cancers. But cancers are the mouse in the room. There's 1,800 autoimmune deficiencies because will show up before the cancer does. Cancer takes 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years to show up, to manifest, to be diagnosed. Artificial radionuclides in aquatic plants. Just hit that, didn't I? Soil contamination with low concentration of radionuclides. Studies were showing living in a low man-made ionized radiated environment was much more worse than a single dose. A single dose sequesters in your organs, in your bones, in your muscles, depending on the pathways. A lot of these will act like potassium and calcium. Selected radionuclides and heavy metals in skeletons of birds of prey. In skeletons. So it stays in the skeleton and is mutating the stem cells, right? Like a lot of these radionuclides will go to the pelvic, migrate down there, and because the blood flow is heavy down at your pelvic region, right? So it migrates down there, and then it creates mutated stem cells. That's why you see these wicked leukemias showing up and killing people in short order. Concentration of long-lived artificial radionuclides in moss and lichen cover mountain plants. Migration of radionuclides in topsoil and vegetation cover in the territories of underground nuclear explosion in the Republic of Sakha. So where they were testing it back in the day, this one is 2011. What was that other one? Did they have a date on that? 2004. So they're showing even in 2004, long after, many decades after the bomb testing in the Republic of Sakha. Now I know I'm fudging all the words, Sue me. But what it does shows you how long this stuff hangs around, shows you how much they know, shows you that all the insects, the plants, the flowers, the flowers have to be mutated or were affected and were studied. Then it raises the question, why didn't they study the coastline of the Pacific Rim nations? Why did they go deep into the ocean, take water samples? And you can do that, don't get me wrong, but it's not the way you should be doing it. You should be looking at the biota, you should be looking at the microscopic world, the zooplankton, the phytoplankton, the krill, the sardines, the herring, the anchovies, the ones that are immediately bioaccumulating it because they eat so much of the bioaccumulators themselves, right? And think about the phytoplankton is not just plants. Phytoplankton, it could be, and is, the 11 million eggs from a single oyster. They're the 700,000 eggs from a lingcod that are, and when they're in their infant larvae stage, they're considered phytoplankton. They're in that group because of their sizes. See? It was only when they get bigger they become part of the zooplankton and everything else. So the radionuclides, cesium, strontium, but they also put in 40K. And so what they do at the end of that is they tell you, but there's more 40K than was natural. Right? So that's disgusting because that's a 2011 study, the 5th of April. Less than a month, March, April. See, less than a month after Fukushima, they rolled out this one. But it's okay because there's more potassium-40. That's why Woods Hole Peels feeds people all the time. That's what the UVic, University of Victoria in British Columbia, Canada, feeds people all the time, is that nonsense, right? But here's the study that they're using to manipulate people, right? They were investigating soil, wheat, barley, groats, flour, macaroni, and breakfast flakes, and community-based health promotional, right? And that's what the UVic got money, was to go into the communities and talk about that stuff, right? I gotta watch what I'm talking about because they'll come pick me up again. Or else you'll be sitting there all by yourself. Can't hear you. You're in a big box, mister. Radionuclides uptake as cobalt-60 this time, uptake by fresh water. But the other studies, what they do is, right, they throw in potassium-40 and they say, but there's more natural radiation than there was man-made, and then implying you shouldn't worry about it because there's more natural. But you're accumulated that, you're acclimated to that through genetic superior selection through millions of years. Everything on the planet is here because we're naturally, that is us. We're full of potassium-40. We're not full of plutonium and americium and neptuniums. Well, we are now because it's in the drinking water standard. I can't prove it because you took it off the Health Canada website. But lucky me, I actually got the screen captures and videos that I made about it, calling it outrageous. And I can't tell you anything about that study there because they want $29.95, right? And so remember what I was showing you about all the academics have quit from Elsevier because the publishers, well, this is Springer, but it's the same thing as Springer, blah, 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 right? It's just, I mean, it all works together to enhance each other synergistically. Yeah, $59.95, take her to the garden. But you're only renting it. You can't take it. You can't take screen captures of it. You can't print it out because that's breaking that policy. But you paid for the studies. And Elsevier, Springer, and Wiley got 22,000 of the most prestigious academic journals on the planet, and they get the copyrights to all your academic universities, institutions, studies for free. We do all the work, we pay all the money, we provide all the resources, they get it for free and hide it away. But anyway, accumulation of radionuclides by associative bacteria, and by the bacteria, associating bacteria that uptaked it, and that was uptaken by inoculated barley plants. Yum, barley. And so don't eat anything from the Soviet with barley written on it. Anything from Belarus, anything from Ukraine with barley written on it. Interaction of fungi, or from Sellafield, or from France, or from Israel, or from Canada. See what I mean? You can't trust them. And you got to go out and find people that got greenhouses and got everything done right and don't use pesticides or GMO. Interaction of fungi and radionuclides in the soil. Yeah, no, that's not a very interesting thing. Why would you study that? But there's no, trying to raise money to do things I want to do, to look at the other side of the story, forget about it. But look at how much money it took to cover just the studies I showed you. But how many people read those studies? How many people read that one? Download, that one was 920 times because of fungi and radionuclides. Fungi's a big one, eh? But let me go back up and let me find one more.
Thing on the planet.
Yeah. Some of these, they tell you how many times it was downloaded. That one was 920. Let's look at another one as we wind down. This one was only downloaded 3 times. This is frigged up. Radionuclides in urology. Well, if you go look at sewage treatment facilities in Japan, they got like miles of bags of sewage that are completely radiated from sewage, from people sitting on the toilet, from urology. But you won't see that, but only 3 people downloaded that one there. So more people just seen it that second on my site, right? And we got 48 people showing. I noticed the video on live stream last night, I got no views on it. That was a big stream. That thing was rocking for 2.5 hours. I don't know how many studies we covered. But metals and radionuclides in birds, I loved how he put those together, right? Just talk about the radionuclides. They are metals, okay? But radionuclides, they got to put metals in there right at the beginning too, right? They should put radionuclides in birds and metals and eggs from Amcheka and Kishka Island in the Bering Sea Pacific Ocean ecosystem. April 20, 2007. And so they got a couple of paragraphs there. Metals and radionuclide levels in marine birds of dilutions are of interest because they are part of the subsistence diets of dilute people and can also serve as indicators of marine pollution. Can serve. See, they got to structure everything. Remember, this is pre-Fukushima. So a lot of it's in different contexts where they're still trying to cover up. Remember, all Harvard, Yale, Berkeley, MIT, Stanford, Oxford, every one of them went where? Oh, I don't know. To Chernobyl. But none of them went to where? Oh, I don't know. Fukushima. Right? They studied Chernobyl over and over and over and over and over and over. I showed you shit all fucking night last night. Excuse the Newfoundlandese. That rolls into me sometimes. Radionuclides in the environment of, I gotta get Roger over here. Roger's really good with words. Corrects me all the time. It's the only reason I know so many things as I do now. Roger's correct me all the time. Migration of radionuclides in natural media, in the Chernobyl case, once again, and there's no year on that. That was downloaded 39 times. So we got 46 people there. And so we officially just got more attention on that story than they got since whenever they put it out there. Until 1989, most information concerning the accident of Chernobyl, Ukraine, and Belarusian scientists, there was over 2,400 studies translated and was republished as a book at the New York Science of Medicine. I've covered that before for everybody. But let's try to get my act together. Okay, we're going to give it up. And just to make you understand what all those studies mean, there's the drinking water standard for Canada. Now, you won't find that on their site anymore. They got it in a different format, but it's not in that format. All those studies about fallout, think about this chart I'm showing you, looking at right now. Think about that. Hang on a second. Think about that chart. So each line you see there, that's North America and Canada and the United States. But each line you see there is 3 atomic tests where the wind was blowing in the same direction. But all the studies I showed you were on Chernobyl or other stuff. They weren't on that stuff there. So everything I showed you is applicable to you in your everyday life. Whether you want to accept that or believe that, and even though you might feel helpless right now about it, you shouldn't think that way because it's more important, that's my word, don't steal it, I'm going to get a patent on it. It's more important than it is to know rather than it is not to know. This way you can make decisions that will help. Will help you, will help your loved ones, will help your friends, your families. But that's just a 10-year testing. That's just 10 years of testing. Now they done that because they were worried Russia might do that if there was a nuclear exchange. So what was better? Was it this? Just because you were worried Russia might do that? Does that make any sense to anybody? And so all the studies that I showed you were on Chernobyl because they wanted them. That's the ideology that we live in. The chart you're looking at now is the used nuclear fuel and storage. It's metric tons. That was by 2010 is when this one was produced. And it shows you in tonnage. And now just because it says California has 2,000 or 3,850 tons, metric tons, It's not in that one spot. It's throughout California, right? So if they were to take, and so what happens is all of this is vented into your communities. All of it leaches into your drinking water, into your estuaries, into your rivers, and that all the reactors themselves are boiling 1 million gallons a minute, that all the mines that you got to dig up, there's 5,000 just in Navajo, that are abandoned and are contaminated, highly contaminated mines. And all of that is leaching into their water, into their communities. It's being picked up and liberated through convection and evaporation throughout the country and is carried by the winds. We know that from all the studies I just showed you. And the studies I'll continue to show you over the next week. It'll be nothing but studies, back and forth, back and forth. Just remember that we're not just a random people. We went out and done 260 days on the ocean. We covered 15,000 miles of the coastline. We went in and studied the most vulnerable part of the ocean. We are many, and we will not be denied the opportunity and of a way forward and having a conversation about it. And so it's no good for the trolls to no longer claim that tritium is harmless. We proved in a 2.5-hour video last night with hundreds of studies available showing tritium is bad no matter what way it was approached. Right? Hugs for everybody. Good night, everybody. Good day, everybody. Albert, Bob, Divine, Elaine, ice cream for you. The chat room has gone bananas. Awesome. Hugs for everybody. Kevin, Bob, David. I can't pronounce yet, but hi. Yeah, is this guy serious? Yeah, he's serious. I just showed you all the studies. What do you want? What do you want? I show you in real time as I'm talking, pertinent. Everything I say is covered by what I talk. I show you the studies. How can somebody come in and say, is this guy serious? Right? It's because they're desperate. They're desperate to discredit me. That's why they smeared me throughout Canada. Not going to work. Not going away. Hugs for everybody. See you, Jim. See you, Shanikan. Candace, everybody. Talk to everybody tomorrow. We'll be back on stage. Terry Ann, Dolomite, Jester. Take care, folks.